The lake was nice. Peaceful and calm were words she would use to describe it. Briar's family had decided to vacation in town because of the folklore of the monster. They had visited shops and restaurants that revolved around this theme. The theme of the mysterious Loch Ness Monster. Her mother and father were among countless others who did not believe in its existence. "It's been proven to be a hoax," her father explained. "The only reason the townspeople keep pushing the legend is to bring tourists in. It's all about money." "And we fell for it," Briar's mother laughed in reply. "Here we are vacationing at Loch Ness when we know full well that no such creature exists." "Oh, that's all right," the father said in return. "We needed a vacation, and we're having fun. Making lots of good memories. Right, Briar? You having fun?" Now, Briar did not answer, not because she did not hear her father's question. What he'd said had been plenty loud enough. But she was noticing nothing about her surroundings. Her entire attention was on the lake and what she had just seen swimming in it. Some distance away, on another part of the lake, was a fisherman who was becoming frustrated. Frank had waited all week for this. All he'd been able to think about or discuss throughout the week was this fishing trip. He'd enjoyed fishing his entire life, and he had always wanted to try his luck in this famous lake. Of course, most of the fame was about a creature that some people had claimed to see. If he were to have an experience seeing a creature like that, he would be thrilled. He wasn't holding his breath, though. He doubted the Loch Ness Monster was a real thing. But what was a real thing were the fish he was ready to catch. But it had been a couple of hours already, and he had had no bites whatsoever. No splashes or ripples were present the entire time either. He was beginning to wonder if there was anything in this lake at all. Maybe he should just pack it up and go home. Just as he was about to call it quits, he saw something across the lake. He couldn't believe it. "Many people have seen it. Stories go back for centuries," the tour guide's voice blared through the speaker as the boat made its way slowly on top of the waters of Loch Ness. He'd been recounting tales all day. Some were documented witness stories of people who had spotted something unusual in the lake. Others were stories the guide had been told by friends and by people he had met through the years. And truth be told, some of the stories he had simply made up himself. After all, the more entertaining he was, the more the tourists would talk about it, and the more business he would bring in. On the front row of the boat was seated a little blonde-haired girl. She was maybe 8 or 9 years old. She suddenly spoke up with a question for the guide. "Have you seen the monster?" she asked the guide. "Oh, yes," he lied. "I've seen him several times." "I've seen him too," she said. He found this amusing, and with the chance to add to his collection of tales, he smiled and asked her, "Really? That's incredible. When did you see him?" "He's right there," she said, pointing into the distance behind the guide. He turned to see where she was pointing. When he did, the smile on his face evaporated. He couldn't believe his eyes. The whole town was abuzz. People were talking about what they had seen. Reports of seeing the creature were nothing new. People did this all the time, but usually with little to no evidence to back up their claims. This time was different. It wasn't just a few people saying they saw it. It was dozens and dozens, and there was evidence. Phones and cameras were busy that day. Photographs and videos were everywhere of what appeared to be the legendary Loch Ness Monster. Videos were going viral. This was now something the whole world was talking about. With all of this excitement came a variety of reactions. There were those who had previously been skeptics, who had been converted into die-hard believers. Those who had believed all along were now basking in the glory of this validation. Some were talking about trying to capture the creature and making plans as to how to do this. They figured to be heroes, forever remembered in the history books as the capturers of the famous Loch Ness Monster. Wherever people found themselves on the previous spectrum of belief, everyone was excited. Everyone except for one man. His name was James Jasher. He had lived near the lake his entire life. When he was a boy, he had wanted to see the monster and had spent many hours looking and had come away with nothing. In time, he had grown to hate the legend and had dedicated his life to shooting down any stories of its existence. "It's fake," he yelled to an excited crowd in town. "I'm sure it's a hoax, and I will prove it once and for all. I'm going after it tomorrow at noon." Well, word of Mr. Jasher's quest spread almost as quickly as the news of the sightings. Before long, most everyone knew he was planning something. They didn't know exactly what it was, but they wanted to see. Just before noon the next day, a crowd had gathered near the shore. While waiting for James Jasher to make his appearance, a commotion spread through the crowd like wildfire. In the middle of the lake, the creature surfaced. There was no mistaking it. They were not misidentifying some other animal. They were not hallucinating. Hundreds of people were standing on the shore of Loch Ness, seeing the Loch Ness Monster. "A fake!" they heard being shouted nearby. "It's an elaborate hoax. I will prove it." It was James Jasher. He was pushing a rowboat into the water. "Are you crazy?" someone asked. "That thing could be dangerous." "Well, the only danger here," he replied, "is the lie that you are buying. I'm telling you, this is nothing but a hoax. It must be a cleverly made machine of some kind. Some prankster is at the controls." Some people wanted to stop him as they feared for his safety, but at the same time, there was a sickening curiosity to see what would happen. He began to row across the lake, closer and closer to the creature. The closer he got, the quieter the crowd became. What would the monster do when he got close? And what would he do when he got close to the monster? What exactly was the plan here? He was now maybe 25 to 30 feet from the beast. Everyone in the crowd held their breath as he stood up in the boat. He had a rock in both of his hands. Many eyes in the crowd widened as they realized what was about to happen. He threw a rock as hard as he could, and then the other. His aim was true. The monster had been hit. Shock and disappointment swept through the crowd at what they had witnessed. When the rocks hit, they heard the undeniable sound of rocks hitting metal. It seemed as though the monster they were seeing was not flesh and blood after all. James Jasher turned to the crowd triumphantly. "I told you," his voice echoed across the lake. "Nothing but a clever hoax." The monster robot then began its descent back under the water. James Jasher was right. It was nothing more than a machine. And inside that machine, with a smile on his face, as he controlled that monster, was Bigfoot. I hope you enjoyed our story. If you did and you are new to the channel, this is Custom Storyteller. We have several other stories posted. I would encourage you to go back and listen to those. Let us know what you think. You can leave a comment. Subscribe to the channel. Click the notification bell so you'll be notified with future videos. You can also email the email address that you see on your screen if you have a suggestion for a future story. Thank you. Goodbye.